The film holds the title of the highest-rated movie on IMDb and has received widespread acclaim for its exceptional performances, captivating narrative, and profound themes of hope, redemption, and the resilience of the human spirit. The film has garnered multiple Academy Award nominations and has cemented its status as a timeless masterpiece that has captured the hearts of audiences worldwide. Banker Andy Dufresne is sentenced to life in the brutal Shawshank prison for the murder of his wife and her lover, despite maintaining his innocence. His composed demeanor leaves everyone convinced of his guilt. After serving 20 years for murder, Red is denied parole, but remains unfazed. As the prison's go-to smuggler, he places a bet on which new inmate will break down on their first night. He places a large wager on Andy, a new fish convicted of murdering his wife and her lover. The new inmates are subjected to a brutal hazing ritual where bets are placed on who will break down first. After Fat Ass wins the dubious honor, he is savagely beaten by a guard and later dies due to inadequate medical attention. Andy, however, remains calm and composed, prompting Haywood to mock him. Andy seeks Red's help in acquiring a rock hammer for his hobby of rock collecting and sculpting. Red, known for his ability to get anything, is cautious and warns Andy about the sexually predatory sisters, including their leader, Boggs. Despite others seeing Andy as aloof, Red takes a liking to him and eventually delivers the hammer, realizing that it is too small to be used for escape. For the first 2 years, Andy works in the prison laundry and is repeatedly assaulted by Boggs and the sisters. Despite his resistance, Andy is regularly beaten and raped, but does not speak out. Red helps Andy and some friends get assigned to a new work detail, where Andy hears Hadley complain about taxes on his inheritance. Andy offers to help Hadley shelter the money in exchange for cold beers for the inmates. Hadley eventually agrees, and Red notes that Andy may have done it to build favor with the guards and feel normal again. Andy requests for Rita Hayworth, and Red agrees to get him a poster of the actress. However, Andy is beaten by the sisters and ends up in the infirmary for a month. Boggs, the leader of the sisters, is beaten to near death by Hadley and his men. When Andy is released from the infirmary, Red and his friends give him rocks to sculpt and a poster of Rita Hayworth. The prison warden Norton inspects Andy's cell after hearing of his assistance to Hadley. During the inspection, Andy is found reading the Bible and the two discuss their favorite verses. The warden is impressed and encourages Andy to keep reading the Bible, stating that salvation can be found within it. Andy is transferred to work in the prison library with Brooks Hatlin, where he is soon asked to provide financial advice to a prison guard. He sets up a desk and begins providing financial advising services to most of the prison guards, and even helps them with their income tax returns. Andy also begins writing letters to the Maine State Senate, requesting funds to expand the prison library. His services become so popular that even guards from other prisons seek his financial expertise when they visit for inter-prison baseball matches. Even the warden himself has Andy prepare his tax returns. Brooks, an aging inmate who has spent 50 years in Shawshank, becomes institutionalized and threatens to kill Haywood in order to avoid being paroled. Andy talks him down, but Brooks is unable to adjust to life outside the prison and eventually commits suicide. His suicide note reads, "Brooks was here, and is carved on a wooden beam." Red sympathizes with Brooks and acknowledges that the longer one stays in prison, the more they become dependent on it. Andy receives $200 and a collection of old books and phonograph records for the library after 6 years of letter writing. Despite this, he remains undaunted and continues his efforts to expand the library. Andy discovers a copy of Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro in a collection of old books and records donated to the prison library. He locks the guard in the bathroom and plays the record over the PA system, causing the whole prison to be moved by the music. The warden is furious and sends Andy to solitary confinement for 2 weeks. When he gets out, Andy talks about the power of hope in prison, but Red disagrees and warns Andy to get used to living without hope. This leads to a discussion about institutionalization and how it can make it difficult for prisoners to adapt to life outside of prison, as exemplified by Brooks, who commits suicide after being paroled. Red has another parole hearing after 30 years in prison, but his request is rejected. Andy gives Red an harmonica to commemorate his time served, while Red gives Andy a giant poster of Marilyn Monroe to commemorate his 10 years in prison. 4 years after the Mozart incident, the state Senate finally gives Andy a budget of $500 per year to build his library. He uses the money wisely and makes deals with book clubs and charities to create the best prison library in the state and names it after Brooks. Andy then begins to mentor inmates who want to receive their high school diplomas so they can have a better chance of getting a job once they are released. The warden, Norton, uses Andy's financial knowledge to profit from prison labor and a scheme involving public projects. Andy helps launder the money through fake accounts and investments under the name of a non-existent person, Randall Stevens, which would make it difficult for anyone to trace the scheme back to them. Andy admits to Red that he learned how to be a crook while in prison. In 1965, a new inmate named Tommy arrives at Shawshank for breaking and entering. He becomes friends with Andy and Red, and Andy encourages him to pursue his high school equivalency diploma. Despite being a good student, Tommy becomes frustrated during the exam and crumples it up. Later, Tommy overhears Andy and Red talking about Andy's case and shares a story about a former cellmate who boasted about killing a golfer and his lover, a crime for which another man was wrongly convicted. After Tommy reveals information that could prove Andy's innocence, Andy meets with the warden in the hope that he will help him get a new trial. However, the warden reacts negatively and sends Andy to a month-long solitary confinement. The inmates are shocked by the length of the punishment and begin to suspect that Andy may truly be innocent. While he's in solitary confinement, which brings a small smile to his face. Tommy is asked by the warden if his story about the pro golfer murder is true and if he would testify on Andy's behalf. Tommy agrees, but the warden orders Hadley to kill him. The warden lies to Andy that Tommy tried to escape and was shot dead by Hadley. Andy refuses to believe this and threatens to stop working for the warden. The warden retaliates by threatening to shut down the library, burn all the books, and move Andy to a more dangerous part of the prison if he stops working for him. Andy is sent to solitary confinement again. Andy talks to Red about his deceased wife and his dreams of living in Zihuatanejo, Mexico, managing a hotel. He asks Red to retrieve something for him from a specific hayfield in Buxton if he ever gets paroled. Andy then asks Haywood for a rope, causing Red to worry that he might be contemplating suicide. Meanwhile, the warden orders Andy to shine his shoes and put his suit in for dry cleaning before locking him in his cell for the night. Andy fails to show up for the morning call, causing the guards to search for him. Meanwhile, Norton becomes worried when he finds Andy's shoes in his shoebox instead of his own. Norton becomes increasingly hostile and paranoid, throwing Andy's sculpted rocks around the cell. When he throws one at Andy's poster, the rock punches through and into the wall, revealing a tunnel that Andy has been digging for years. The story is told through a series of flashbacks narrated by Red. Andy, who had received a rock hammer, discovered that the wall of his cell was made of a material that he could dig through to escape. He spent years digging a tunnel using his rock hammer and hid the dirt in his pockets, which he emptied during his morning walks. He covered the hole with a poster of Rita Hayworth and continued digging. When Tommy was killed, Andy realized it was time to escape. Andy managed to escape from prison by using a tunnel he had been secretly digging for years with his rock hammer. He hid his work by covering the hole with a poster of Rita Hayworth and by emptying the dirt from his pockets during morning walks in the courtyard. On the night of his escape, he wore the warden's clothes underneath his own, and packed his belongings into a bag which he tied to himself with the rope he had asked for. He escaped through the hole and found a sewer line which he broke open with a rock, crawling through it to freedom. A search team later found his prison clothes, a bar of soap, and his rock hammer. Andy successfully escapes from Shawshank Prison through a tunnel he dug using a rock hammer over the course of several years. He uses Norton's clothes and a fake identity to withdraw money from various banks, accumulating a total of $370,000. Before leaving Portland, he sends a package containing evidence of Norton's corruption to the newspaper. The Maine State Police and reporters storm Shawshank Prison after Andy's escape is discovered. Hadley is arrested for the murder of Tommy, and the district attorney enters with a warrant for Norton's arrest. Norton finds Andy's rock hammer in the Bible he had given him and commits suicide before the police can arrest him. Red receives a postcard from Fort Hancock, Texas with no message on it, indicating that Andy has successfully escaped to Mexico. While reminiscing about Andy's escape, Red becomes depressed and misses his friend. Red attends his 1967 parole hearing and admits to regretting his past actions and the harm he's caused. He asks the board to stop wasting his time and is granted parole. He struggles with adapting to life outside of prison and considers returning to jail at times, but remembers the promise he made to Andy and ultimately chooses to stay free. He buys a compass from a pawn shop, indicating his desire to start a new life and move forward. Red follows Andy's instructions and finds the box of cash under the black stone in Buxton. The box also contains instructions to meet Andy in Zihuatanejo, but he doesn't mention the exact location for safety reasons. Andy also asks for someone who can help him with a project. Red realizes the power of hope and feels excited. Red carves a new message in the wooden beam and violates parole to leave the halfway house. He travels to Fort Hancock and crosses into Mexico to reunite with Andy on a beach of the Pacific coast. The Shawshank Redemption reminds us that hope is a powerful force that can help us overcome even the most difficult circumstances. The film also emphasizes the importance of friendship, resilience, and the ability to forgive ourselves and others for our past mistakes. Through the characters of Andy and Red, we see that it is never too late to start over, and that we all have the capacity to change and grow. Ultimately, the film teaches us that even in the darkest of places, there is always a glimmer of light, and that we should never give up on our dreams and aspirations.